Okay, just think of it in your mind. Was it a red card? Yeah. Red? Okay. The number was a low number. Like look in here. You can do it. You can take it.
I was in Iran in 2017, and here's some footage from my trip. It seems that Donald Trump has decided to use tariffs to help out, to step in financially. Trump has said, effective immediately, any country doing business with the Islamic Republic of Iran will pay a tariff of 25% on any and all business done. I can't do the voice, with the United States of America. This order is final and conclusive. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Is that enough? Do the Iranian people want boots on the ground in order to secure their safety? Let's listen to some analysis. Well, we'll see some footage first of all. Here we go. Protests.
You wonderful people, you freedom fighters. This time, are we going to win? Yes, we are. We're going to win. And then there's a terrible price being paid by many innocent people in every Iranian city right now. But you've got to believe that this is the moment.
We really appreciate you. May God bless you. And we wish everything good.
Well, may God bless all of you and let freedom for Iran.
So Nigel Farage is getting behind the Freedom for Iran movement. Another clip here.
Iranian people peacefully having a protest, and these Antifa Democrats just show up and turn up anti-ICE. No king. Chanting king.
So that's footage from America. Antifa clashing with the Iranian protesters, Antifa against the monarchy in Iran. It gets very murky. A lot of the opposition in Iran are actually politically left-wing, but wanting to install a monarchy comes across as right-wing. Antifa, anti-fascists don't like that. Instinctively, they are rebelling against anyone hoping to reinstall the Shah. Shall we hear from the Shah? Here he is, or the would-be Shah. This is the Shah's son.
Forgive me, Riza, I heard you say over the weekend that you are willing to die for this cause. What does that mean?
Yes. But look, the first time I was ready to die for a cause when I volunteered to join the Iranian Air Force during the Iraqi attack on Iran and the breaking of the Iran-Iraq war, when the revolutionary government of Khomeini was already in place. My patriotic duty was asking me to, as a pilot, to go and fight alongside my military brethren in that war. I was prepared to die then. I'm prepared to die now. There's no greater cause for that, the liberty. And what is my life when I'm thinking of millions of young Iranians who today call my name? This young girl who a doctor in Tehran was operating on because she was shot in the face with bullets that had broken her jaw The doctor said, where are you going? He said, I'm going back to the street. I'm going back and I'm going to the streets and I wait until Reza, my leader, comes back and saves us. That's the degree of commitment they have. How could I not possibly be unprepared to die for them, to die for liberty, to die for saving our nation? I'm prepared to do that. I've trained for it all my life. I prepared for it all my life. And maybe this is a time that I can be there alongside them to fight the final battle.
Would-be Shah Reza Pahlavi putting it all on the line. It's interesting that he said he was willing to sign up and fight in the army during the Iran-Iraq war. The Islamic Republic was in full swing at the time. He would have been in the armed forces of the Islamic Republic. And I'll show you another clip of my time in Iran later on. One thing I realized, the Iranian people are very patriotic. Whatever their political affiliations might be, they are very patriotic people. And I remember driving in a taxi through the town of Shiraz, and the streets were lined with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posters with martyrs of people that lost their life for their country in the Iran-Iraq war. And they were clearly pro-regime, pro-government propaganda. And I asked the taxi driver, what do you make of this? And he said, personally, I am not with the regime, but these people died for Iran, and he respected that. And even this gentleman, who is against the current government, he says he was willing to sign up and fight in their army when they were under attack from Iraq. Would he say the same thing if America invade Iran to install him? Or will it be done peacefully with only a few lives lost, like when Nicolas Maduro was kidnapped? One of the crimes he was accused of was supporting Iran. Let's hear some more voices.
Spoke to Iranian-American journalist and activist Masih Alinejad, who has been demanding change from outside Iran. I asked her what she had found out about the number of demonstrators killed.
Heartbreaking massacre is taking place in Iran. You know, I've received a message from one of the activists inside Iran using a Starlink saying that he is witnessing how unarmed people being killed in front of the eyes of their family members. Over 2,000 people have been killed. I know that people are ready to end this regime, but with empty hand, believe me, the regime is going to slaughter innocent and unarmed people more and more.
It's so difficult to get a real estimate and a handle with what's going on because we don't have any communication. I wonder what you are hearing from your friends and your family.
We are in touch. People are actually witnessing massacre, mass killings, and they actually sending us videos. You see how their lifeless bodies are on the top of each other in hospital. You see how family members are trying to identify their beloved one. My heart is broken when I see that leaders of free world kept quiet. I really want to know, where is the UK Prime Minister? Where is Europe?
So what should the international community do right now? You've heard President Trump say we're going to be hitting them very hard. And we've also seen that he's getting briefings about military action. What needs to be done?
Whether you like it or not, people inside Iran welcoming the decision of President Trump, they need to see action, not empty words. But I guess this is the Berlin Wall moment of Iran. The Europe should be brave. They should join the United States of America. The Europe should be united and stand with the people of Iran. They have to downgrade their diplomatic ties with this murderous regime. They don't understand the language of diplomacy. Cut down the embassy and echo the voice of Iranian people.
How does this compare to what we have seen before in 2022, in 2009? Is this now something different that you're seeing?
It is. It is different. It is different. I see that the fear is gone. It's gone. People are showing their face, using their own social media before going to the street with their own identity because they are fed up. So this is the continuation of 6 major uprisings took place in Iran. And I think this is not a protest anymore. It is a revolution. It is a revolution when unarmed people in the streets saying that we're not going back home, when they're calling President Trump, when they're calling the free world to help them to end the Islamic Republic.
And just finally, if this is the end of the regime, you say this is a revolution, then what's next for Iran?
Secular democracy. So simple. I keep hearing that a lot of people in the West are scaring us, saying that this is going to be a chaos. No one made chaos in the region more than the Islamic Republic did. Just believe that Iranian people deserve to have the same freedom that you take it for granted in the UK, in America, everywhere. We, the women, deserve to have the same freedom without getting beaten up by a bunch of backward Islamist Sharia laws police telling us what to wear. We deserve to have dignity. And a secular democracy is the demand of this people taking to the streets.
Notice that she mentioned the Starlink. Elon Musk is obviously saving the day, and this activist hoping for a quick transition to secular democracy. Is it quite that simple? What happened in Syria? You've got a president in Syria now, a new president, been there for a year. I wonder if the situation would be different if Bashar al-Assad was still in power and being propped up by the Islamic Republic. Would there be other voices that we're not hearing now that are enemies or critics of Bashar al-Assad? Would they have been speaking up for ousting of the Islamic Republic? Because Bashar al-Assad is gone now, before the Islamic Republic, maybe there's no need to oust him for some people. Let's hear the other side of the coin. We are going now to Al Jazeera.
What we're seeing today is Israel instigated revolt because there are Mossad agents in the streets of Tehran hiding among Iranian demonstrators. This is something that the former head of CIA, Mike Pompeo, has said when he sent a New Year congratulations to Iranians, quote unquote. Among them, he included Mossad agents who are standing next to Iranians. In addition, over the last few days, we have seen Israeli flags in Tehran among the protesters. What is Israeli flag doing in Iran? So, when we look at the events unfolding in Iran, we have...
I haven't seen that. I've seen a lot of Israeli flags in protests around the world. I haven't seen Israeli flag in Tehran. This guy from Al Jazeera apparently has.
To be very careful making a distinction between a legitimate protest of Iranians against their government because of the economic crisis and the imbalance between rial and dollar, and illegitimate Israeli instigated protest for their own nefarious reasons. Why is Israel interested in Iran? It's very simple: to distract attention from the ongoing genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and the continued theft of Palestinian territories in West Bank.
Okay, there's an opposing view. Argon Bond is saying, bring back the miniskirts, like in the 60s. Are you old enough to remember that, Aragorn? Is that what it's really about? Women wearing short skirts? I'm not sure. Let's hear GB News. They are hot on this topic.
Look, the IRGC is an armed Islamist extremist organization. It operates...
IRGC, that's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Council?
No differently to other prescribed terrorist organizations that the UK has put on its list, from ISIS to Al-Qaeda. The IRGC has a formal program of radicalization for all of its members, which calls on its members, which teaches its members to wage armed jihad against Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians on the basis that they do not have acceptable faith and must convert to Islam.
So I have to mention here that there are Jewish members of parliament in the Majlis in the Islamic Republic of Iran. Not saying Jews, Christians and Zoroastrians have it perfect in that country. There are Jewish members of parliament in Iran, the largest Jewish community in the Middle East outside of the Holy Land, but I'm sure it's not been all plain sailing for them. Just wanted to mention that.
Or be killed. For Iranians, for the heroic Iranian people who are taking to the streets, the IRGC is teaching its members that these are enemies of God and they must not only be killed, but they must be tortured prior to their death. We see the IRGC's modus operandi: terrorism, hostage-taking, hijacking.
We've got a good correction here. Last answer saying IRGC is the Islamic Republic the Islamic Iranian Revolutionary, I've lost it, but the C is core, not council.
More than
Islamic Revolutionary Guard Council. Core, not council.
20 terror plots have been foiled on British soil since 2022. My best friend, a British Iranian journalist, was stabbed 4 times in Wimbledon in an IRGC proxy attack. So absolutely, the IRGC fits the criteria for prescription. And by the way, prescription would have practical consequences for its ability to operate on British soil, because the IRGC is using the same methods as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, spreading homegrown Islamist radicalization, homegrown terrorism on British soil. But unlike ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which are prescribed terrorist organizations, the current sanctions regime, Britain's current sanctions regime on the IRGC, does not prohibit its ability to disseminate jihadi propaganda.
All right,
on British soil.
we'll come back to you, Kazra. Thank you for that. So, Tobias, I'll bring you in now, former chair of the Defence Select Committee. Are you on the side of Labour over this, then, Tobias, that you don't think we should ban them?
Well, I don't. Well, interesting place to start. Am I on the side of Labour? I'll say my own position, and then you can make comparisons as you like. I mean, firstly, it's right that you pay tribute to the absolute courage of those that are on the streets in Iran this evening and have been for the last 3 or 4 weeks, standing up to this brutal regime. And this is the biggest opportunity in the 47 years history of this theocracy for this regime to come down. The question is what follows next. And I hear absolutely the localized, the domestic threats that the IGC has placed on the UK. But the reason why we're discussing this now is because of what's going on in Iran. My concern is, and I was Middle East minister and was frustrated that we didn't do more over decades to stand up to the proxy influences, to stand up to Iran. You know, Donald Trump did something quite incredible in 2020. He took out General Soleimani, in charge of the Quds force under the IRGC, but then didn't stop there. And the concern I have is that we do this. We see something abroad, MPs jump on this bandwagon and say, let's list them. Let's register them as a terrorist organization. And then that will sort of, that's our fill, if you like, of what we've done. It makes us feel better. The question I pose is this part of a wider strategy? And just to place into context what the IRGC is, this isn't just an extremist operation. This is very much part of the Iranian state. And if we don't tread carefully, especially with external intervention, it could be that a theocratic regime is replaced by the IRGC because of what we do from outside. So this is a very delicate time in the history of Iran. And I just ask, greater thought is put in. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, where does this fit in? Where does this fit in to an absolute generational opportunity to see change in Iran?
Well, that would be a nightmare if they ended up taking power instead of the Ayatollahs. You mentioned proxies and Iran funding terrorism and terror plots foiled in Europe. I was under the impression that every time there was a terror plot foiled in Europe or carried out in Europe, it was an ISIS-style attack or an ISIS-inspired attack, certainly over the last few years, although they seem to go away during the lockdown. The Islamic Republic of Iran, as fundamental as they are diametrically opposed to ISIS. They're from a different sect. So I'm surprised to hear that there's so many plots being foiled. It sounds like not many of them slipped through the net. But that is another argument for taking them out. What about Julia Hartley-Brewer?
But what we are seeing is this is the last phase of the Islamic Revolution. They can stop this particular uprising, but they've not got anything left unless they totally reform their own internal structures.
But as we've often seen with these regimes, if they sort of give an inch, then the whole edifice collapses. Are you convinced we are in the end game of this? And how much of that is down to, for instance, Israeli and US airstrikes in the last year?
Well, no. If it was up to the Iranian people, yes, this is the death throes of the Islamic Republic, so-called. But these things can sometimes be delayed several years if the regime in question is sufficiently ruthless. Now, when it comes to the United States have already shown that they have power in relation to Iran that no one else has. When they, for example, sent a chunk of their air force right across the Atlantic to bomb the nuclear program of Iran, and they did that superbly well. Somebody has once remarked that America is not just a superpower, it's a super-duper power. And it's the only one that there actually is. I mean, Russia, China, no other country could remotely compare with their military capabilities. So they can do a hell of a lot. Will they try and take out the supreme leader? I mean, having grabbed Maduro, I should imagine Khamenei, the supreme leader, is very, very nervous. And he will not be in the same building every evening. Yep. He'll probably be in a taxi at the moment, going between various so-called safe houses.
Will they do a Maduro on him? Somehow I just imagine it would be much more difficult. Further away, although is it any different crossing the Caribbean than it is crossing the Atlantic? Could they capture the Ayatollah? And it's not, look, you've got Ayatollah Khamenei, but you've also got the president and the rest of the Ayatollahs. There's more than just one, isn't there? We had a question from Bobby Ver. If I move to Iran, can I become Iranian? Good question, Bobby. I don't know. How's your Farsi? Can you speak the language? Are you interested in becoming Iranian? Maybe you could get married and get a passport. And if it was a temporary marriage, I wonder, would it be a temporary passport? Another pro-freedom for Iran voice. Here we go.
Are the protests in Iran fake? No. Are the US and the Mossad behind them? No. When you repeat these Islamic Republic talking points, you're wittingly or unwittingly parroting regime propaganda, stripping Iranians of their agency, and essentially whitewashing a murderous theocracy. Are there politicians, groups, foreign powers who have tried to hijack the narrative and get you to believe that these protests are not homegrown and instead led by foreign entities? Yes. This is an Iranian people-led revolution in motion that has been unfolding in Iran for the last 2 weeks and on a macro scale for the last 47 years since the Islamic Republic came to power. It's a full-throated rejection of an authoritarian dictatorship. Today is day 5 of a regime-imposed total internet blackout. Millions of people have not heard from their loved ones since last week, all while civilians are being murdered with military-grade weapons. Doctors in Tehran who managed to connect to Starlink for short bursts of time managed to send out some horrifying videos of hundreds of protesters in body bags, lying in the parking lot, strewn about on the floor, and piled up in the back of trucks. Despite the clear and present danger, tonight, January 12th, for the 16th day in a row, Iranians took to the streets en masse demanding an end to the regime. People who just traveled back from Iran are sharing what they witnessed, from seeing regime forces shooting protesters with live ammunition to witnessing people bleeding out on the street. Hospitals were even attacked by regime forces in an attempt to detain injured protesters. These are crimes against humanity. As of yesterday, rights groups were able to confirm that over 500 protesters have been killed, and that number is now estimated to be in the thousands. Once the internet is back on and there's reporting from all 31 provinces, the death toll is expected to be staggering. These are civilians who have been screaming for the end of this regime, who just want freedom, a normal life, to be able to afford to live, and they've been met with bullets and violence as they have been for the last 47 years. To top it all off, state-controlled television is showing videos and pictures of dead protesters and telling the country that they're terrorists, desecrating their memories and their bravery. Labeling them as terrorists also means that the judiciary will be able to execute them at will on the basis of national security. And they've already said they're not going to be lenient on protesters going forward. These anti-regime uprisings have been happening at higher frequencies with less and less time in between them. This is the 5th time since 2017 that the people of Iran have risen up, with millions taking to the streets just in the last week, demanding an end to the regime and the right to choose their own future. Last Thursday and Friday, January 8th and 9th, there was a call to action from the former Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. We witnessed an incredible show of the power of the people when millions took to the streets. Last point, if you're truly anti-imperialist, then you should stand against the Islamic Republic, who is itself an imperialist force in the region, helping to destabilize countries like Syria, Lebanon, Palestine. Supporting oppressors to stick it to the U.S. is cutting your nose off to spite your face. Please stand with the people of Iran, amplify their voices, talk about what's happening, post and share. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if they destabilized Palestine. Palestine is already very destabilized. My goodness, how could you destabilize Palestine even further than it already is? Let's hear from Omid Jalili, lovely guy. I've met him a couple of times and I always like to listen to what he's got to say.
I've hardly slept because the terrible news is that the crackdown, the brutal crackdown, has started in earnest now. Human rights groups have put the killings and deaths by the regime on the protesters who are unarmed at 650, though the videos I see, which I will never share because they're way too horrific. I mean, they're killing kids, they're killing teenagers, young girls. They're absolutely horrific videos, and the word from inside, the number is closer to the high thousands, around the 7,000 mark. But what is incredible, and this is why I'm doing this, as a human being, I've never been more proud as a human being to see my fellow human beings in the face of such unbelievable repression for 46 years, who don't care about our culture wars here, about who's behind these protests. This is the Iranian people for the people who are moving forward, and they are undaunted. I mean, I'm sorry, I had to tell Victoria Derbyshire yesterday on BBC Newsnight, oh, but they're all, the protests are quelling, because I saw it was Lise Doucette, of all people, who were just parroting the regime propaganda that, oh no, there's more protests against the protesters. Protesters have all gone home. That is not true. We're still seeing, with no internet, we're still seeing videos, thousands of people on the streets, and they are at that point where they will not stop. I mean, it's one of the most remarkable. I was at the Berlin Wall when the Berlin Wall came down as someone in my early 20s. Really? I was so excited. I was there.
Amazing.
And that was the most amazing revolution I think we'd ever seen. It was peaceful. This is different. This is on a completely different level altogether. This is one of the most amazing stories unfolding for humanity right now. I cannot believe the stuff. That's why I'm not slept, because I'm speaking not just as a concerned Iranian. I'm absolutely gobsmacked as a human being how these people are at that last door. There are young kids on the streets, and they're basically saying it's do or die. Yeah. You know, it's the end game now, and whatever Trump does, and you know, at the end of the day, if there is some kind of intervention, all revolutions have some kind of outside intervention. Yeah. And if Trump comes and does something, they'll take it.
What's been the reception on social media? Are you getting grief? Are you getting lack of understanding? How's it been on you personally, how people are talking to you and talking about you on social media?
In general, it's been extremely positive. I mean, I've had the comedy community behind me, and I have to mention, you know, names like John Cleese, Al Murray, David Baddiel. There's a whole bunch of people who are supporting, and lots of other comedians. And I really thank them for this, because it really means a lot to me. But there's a lot of people who are attacking, who are saying, oh, you're just a puppet of Zionism. Let's be really clear. I think for anyone to say that this is an American-led, Israeli-led revolution is absolutely off the mark. And, you know, it's this kind of narrative that's getting people killed on the streets right now. So this is Iranian-led. Sure, America and Israel and the whole world will gain if this regime goes. But to call it that, the strong message is, unless you are there to stand up for the people of Iran, the way we stood up for Palestinian rights, and there is absolutely no conflation and no problem with that. There is no difference between that. But if you've got nothing to say, then support the people of Iran then shut the hell up.
I'm happy to hear Omid mention we stood up for Palestinian rights. Well done, Omid. And he's speaking up for his people, his family, and his beliefs. You have to respect the man for that. Bobby is saying, wow, imagine being there at the Berlin Wall, a moment in history. Yeah, our good friend from Speaker's Corner, Heiko Koo, I believe, was in Tiananmen Square at the time of the incident that famously happened there, in this sort of the similar era. Wow, will people look back on this moment as a Berlin Wall moment, as a Tiananmen Square moment? Are we feeling, as Tony Blair said, the hand of history on our backs? LBC.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the leadership of a despotic regime which has a presence in this country and is accused of funding terrorist groups in this country like Hamas, Hezbollah, direct involvement in assassinations, 15 kidnapping attempts in the UK, cyber attacks, supporting radicalisation. That one's allowed, but Palestine Action isn't allowed.
Yeah, well, as I say, the independent review that we got Jonathan Hall, Casey, to do did say that there were some gaps in the legislation, and we agree with him about that.
You've had 18 months to update that gap.
Yeah, I'm sure this is one of the things that's top of the list for the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, to be looking at. And I know that she keeps under very close review prescription of terrorist organisations.
The US, Canada, Sweden, all have prescribed the IRGC,
Yeah, look,
but the UK reasonably sanguine so far to
we're not prepared.
To exist.
We are not prepared to tolerate malign activity from actors that are backed by hostile states.
Well, you clearly are Secretary of State because they've been allowed to continue.
No, that's why this government commissioned the independent reviewer of terrorism to do that piece of work. That work has now concluded. They have said that there were gaps in the legislative powers which make it more complicated, and it makes the prescription of an organisation like Palestine Action compared to the prescription of an organisation like the IRGC more complicated.
It's a pretty good question. Palestine Action, no. IRGC, yes. Bobby Ver saying, why do you think the UK hasn't followed the other countries regarding the banning? I really don't know. I mean, the UK government is no friend of the Islamic Republic. I don't know why people are sort of imagining that there's some kind of conspiracy going on and why haven't they done it? But you tell me. I wonder. Perhaps they will. Maybe they will in the next few days. We know that certain groups are allocated as terrorist or removed from the list that is terrorist according to the whatever is politically expedient. The MEK, the Mujahideen Khalq organization, who were in exile in Camp Ashraf in Iraq, they were a terrorist or prescribed terrorist organization, and they were removed from that list because my enemy's enemy is my friend. But the UK has, I don't think, anything to gain by not prescribing the IRGC. More LBC clips.
What would be your attitude if Donald Trump intervened militarily in Iran?
Well, international law gives you two reasons to use force. One is for self-defense and the other one is under the UN Security Council resolution. So I think right now it is important that any change can come from within the society. We have seen that these regimes are extremely resilient to any outside intervention. And sometimes, you know, outside intervention will actually make the people rally around the flag, which is actually making it harder for the people to deliver change.
So the reasons for intervention are breach of UN Security Council resolutions. There's a country that is in breach of more UN Security Council resolutions than all the other countries in the world put together, but no one has intervened. So it seems like, I remember a good analogy someone gave once was the US is like a lifeguard working at the swimming pool, but he only ever jumps in to save hot blonde women and give them mouth to mouth, whether they're drowning or not.
These are historic
News.
events. You're probably looking at, if not this time, then certainly next time,
So a former Conservative MP and British Army officer, Bob Seeley, he's excited about the downfall of the Islamic Republic.
By the Iranian people of this despicable Islamicist regime, which has plagued their country for nearly 3 decades. So these are great and extraordinary events. And I strongly suspect there's a lot more than 500 people who've been killed, because this is a brutal regime and they will have no qualms about killing their own people, as they have done over a series of protests and smaller scale uprisings over the past 15 years.
But Bob, sad though that is, shocking though that is as well, isn't the truth, my friend, that nobody cares, and the only reason we care is if America cares, or Britain cares, or Russia cares, and it's all over oil? Oil will play a part in this.
Well, I don't, Eamon, with respect, I don't buy that analysis. And actually, oil can sometimes be a valuable factor, so it doesn't have to be negative. I think a lot of people care, especially in the Middle East. Iran has been behind so much of the violence in the Middle East in the last 20 years because of its control of its proxy paramilitary sort of semi-conventional armies and political groups, be it Hezbollah in Israel, be it Hamas, be it Islamic Jihad.
Hezbollah are, of course, not in Israel, but they do fight against Israel.
Be it Shia families in Bahrain, be it the various groups that it runs in Iraq. So actually a lot of people care, because if you take away the mullahs of Tehran out of the equation in the Middle East, you're much more likely to find a situation where Saudi and the UAE and other countries can lead the Arab world and the Muslim world.
Free countries like Saudi, democracies like Saudi.
And, you know, Iranians are Shia and Persian, slightly different, but they can lead most of the Middle East into a long-term peace with Israel. And that's what you're looking at. And that's what the mullahs, especially in the last 10 years, have been desperately trying to avoid. So this is very important for that part of the world, and actually important for the wider world as well.
And Bob, how likely, if at all, do you think it will be that there'll be some sort of US intervention? And what do you think the options on the table are looking like?
Yeah, I mean, one shouldn't get sidetracked, Ellie. This is fundamentally about the Iranian people trying to overthrow a regime which has brutally oppressed them. So that is the story here. And yes, you know, there may be some US action. It doesn't have to be military. They don't have to bomb targets. It could be working with the NSA and potentially GCHQ if our government actually wanted to step up to the mark in forcing open the internet, or finding ways for people to communicate. All those tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, finding a way for them to communicate with each other so that they can coordinate or start to coordinate their action. Because what the regime wants to do is, as it's done in the past, pick off the ringleaders, isolate people, and then deal with these protests violently, one at a time. So potentially the most useful thing the US and its allies, if they wanted could do, would be to help open up the internet and help people communicate within Iran with each other so that everyone can see what is happening.
Well, that's got to be a better option than bombing people. I like the way he put that. Force open the internet. Well, Elon Musk has done that already, hasn't he? With the Starlink. Is Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, more powerful, more helpful than the UN, than the UK, than any of you lot? Let's have another voice.
Fortunately, nothing.
Sky.
We're now 3 days into an internet blackout. The very limited information that I have received has been because of the existence of Starlink terminals and the activation of Starlink recently. And it's not good news. It's unfortunately, we're hearing that thousands of Iranians have now been killed by the regime, thousands of protesters. There's one particular message that has actually been made public of a man recounting his experiences as he witnessed 450 people in a morgue. The morgue was so full that people were then, dead bodies were being stored in a warehouse. And this is the state of Iran and events in Iran right now under the veil, the dark veil of internet shutdown.
I've heard that there is someone set to be executed tomorrow, and Iran does execute per capita a lot of people. Officially, the reason given is for the primary reason for executions officially is drugs trafficking. And of course, a lot of Class A drugs do pour in across the border from Afghanistan. But I wonder, is that an excuse for political executions? Bobby Verd saying at this point, Starlink would give worldwide internet for free. Yeah, why doesn't he just do everyone a favour and open up the Wi-Fi for all of us? But remember, if something is free, you are the product. And we are watching Lessons for Life, free of charge. Thank you for that. Let's hear a differing point of view. We like to express many different points of view on this channel.
What's actually happening in Iran, a man in a pink floral shirt is going to give you a better brief over the next 2 minutes than any of these mainstream media experts who are just pushing propaganda. I lived in Iran for 2.5 years. I speak the language fluently. I have 20 years of experience working in security in a few other areas across the Middle East, so nothing new here. Now, for context, if you don't bend the knee to the US and its friend in the region, then you get labeled a dictator, a fascist. Then sanctions come in to cripple your economy. Then protests start, organic protests, right? They're engineered. Wake up. And then, oh, we need to go in and remove the regime because freedom, because democracy, not for oil or for other strategic reasons, right? So that's what we see being built now. It's known as casus belli. It's a Latin term. It means case for war. If you look back at the last 100 years, all of these wars have had engineered reasons to get justification or to get the public to buy into a military action against sovereign nations. That's what we see right now. The difference is it's a bit of a harder target than we've seen the machine take on recently. So it's not a split down the middle Sunni Shia Iraq. It's not a tribal Afghanistan. Iran's a cohesive country, despite what the media will tell you. There's a lot of pride there, and there's very heavy infrastructure that remains well funded despite the sanctions to keep the regime in place. One piece of that is the Basij militia. It's about 1 million full-time up to 3 or 4 million reservist part-time. These guys are armed, religious, fanatical, ready to die for the regime. Boots on ground is going to be very difficult. Conventional forces isn't really going to work, and the terrain's tricky in Iran as well. So what are we going to see? I reckon within the next week or so, we'll see a bunch of missiles sent over, and that'll continue for months. We're going to see heavy cyber operations targeting critical national infrastructure. We're going to see naval skirmishes on the strategic bodies of water around the region. Are we actually going to see any meaningful steps towards regime change? No. This is all fluff. It's all propaganda. The regime is going to stay in place. I hope not too many people are caught up in the mess from these organic protests and all the missiles that'll be sent in. But this is a continuation of the machine. Bend the knee, or the machine, the military-industrial complex, or the perpetual war machine will try and replace you with stooges who actually serve the US and its friend in the region. Same old game, no mystery here. That's the reality of what's going on, team. How will it affect everyone else in the region? Not that much, I don't think. Hezbollah's pretty much done. What's known as the Shia Crescent is pretty much over now that Bashar has been replaced and Syria is no longer run by Iran as a proxy, effectively. I don't think we're going to see much impact on the region at all. Obviously, the Gulf states will continue as normal. Very happy having my family here. No security concerns there. We're just going to see a bunch more propaganda and a bunch more fear-mongering, but there won't actually be any regime change or any significant change to the region. This is business as usual, and after a while, you get used to it. Cheers, team.
Okay, that man in the pink shirt that lived in Iran for a couple of years is convinced there won't be any regime change. Time will tell. Let's go back to GB News. Seems to be one of the few channels that's really covering the topic.
And what was Iran like when you were younger? Because I understand you must have grown up there.
Absolutely.
You fled when you were
for 19 years, as you said. I grew up in Iran. Well, everything was really, very different. They say sometimes when you look at the pictures of Iran from the past, it's like you're looking into the future. because of what was going on at the time during the time of the Shah of Iran. And generally, you know, I mean, I always say that the generation of my mother, father, and grandparents were the luckiest generations of Iranians because they lived at the time of the Pahlavis, which was really the most progressive, the best time that people could live in such a historic country and with those things. So I grew up in that sort of situation. My father was a member of parliament, a medical doctor.
Okay. We've got a picture of him on the screen.
Yes, that's it. That's him. That's him just a few years before, unfortunately, he was executed.
Now, around about, was it 1979 that
1979, yes. February 79. It's very ironic now that in January, 16th of January 79, the Shah of Iran left Iran. And now, it's 47 years later, people of Iran are calling out for his son, Prince Reza Pahlavi, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, for him to come back to Iran, actually. So it's a strange times, really. It's a strange times for me, for my family, for a lot of Iranians who came here as first sort of wave of political refugees. We were accepted. We made Britain our home. And here we are now.
So what can you tell me about your father? Do you remember what happened? Was it?
Well, of course, yes. I mean, my father and many other politicians and statesmen at the time and army officers were caught, were arrested after the Islamic Revolution of 1979, February 79. And they were interned, they were put on very summary trials, you know, trials which were, and they were a lot of rented, and that's my mother, of course, a picture of my mom, again, a few years before her, you know, she became a widow. Yes, they were put on very brief trials and sentenced to execution. You know, I mean, I still have the first report of the Amnesty International from end of 1979. Only in that year, 990 people were executed according to Amnesty. So that was the situation. I was in the first year of medical school when this happened to us, when my father was executed. So in the summer of that year, I left Iran with my mom, and we came here to join my brother, who was at the university doing his PhD.
I don't know why there's always a lot of nostalgia for the time of the Shah, who was another dictator, although a pro-Western one, and a Western installed one. There was a democratic prime minister in the 1950s. Maybe it's just out of memory and there's not enough people old enough to remember. But wouldn't you have more nostalgia for when you were a democracy, not when you were a different kind of dictatorship? Ladies and gents, I was in Iran in 2017. It's a long time ago now. It feels like yesterday. I will leave you with some highlights from that journey.
I'm here with Gully. Can you guess which country I'm in? It begins with IR. It's good to be back in Ireland.
Now here isn't any water. This is the Iranian magic.
I'm going to find my way to Golestan Palace, having negotiated the metro.
It means mix up.
Okay. Panapa. Just like. Hopefully I'm on my way to Golistan Palace now. I was told it's 100 metres down this way and to the right. Maybe that's it. Inside the Golistan Palace, and it's very bright and very colourful.
We are right now in Madagascar Street. We are gonna go to Charmant Highway, and we're gonna go to
sing a song for you now.
No, but I'm not gonna do it about peace, and also he taught many things, but right now.
I think we should stay here. So, 3, 2, 1. She's phoning the kidnappers. I've just arrived in Shiraz. It's a very mountainous region. Very beautiful. It's evening time in Shiraz and people are out with the family. We're just seeing if the watermelon is good. Yeah, I think it's a good one. The history here. There's a lot to see. A lot of history. Memories of my trip to Iran in 2017. Would love to go back there. Would love to bring my son there one day, inshallah. This has been Lessons for Life, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll do it all again soon, God willing. We were here, and we're gone. Latest.